to March 1956. Frankfurt am Main, West Germany. A railway dispatcher writes in a lined notebook, "Once I scheduled trains with no return. Now I apologize for delays. The timetable does not list what the tracks remember." He does not speak this sentence aloud. He writes it under a lamp at his kitchen table on Klein Seestrasse after the late shift at the Hauptbahnhof. The house is one of the new blocks, thin walls, clean stairwell, the smell of boiled cabbage and soap. He signs only his first name, Karl. He writes small and careful, as if even by private ink he could be overheard. He closes the notebook. He slips it behind the porcelain sugar jar where his wife does not look. He is 45. He looks older. The arithmetic of lines and crossings taught him order. He learned it as a young clerk, then as a dispatcher for the Reichsbahn. He learned when a track can take one train, not two. He learned how paper can command steel. He learned how a stamp can send. To understand a man in 1956 West Germany, you go back to 1945. You count bricks before you count bills. You count absences before you count pardons. You count rails before you count cars. 8 May 1945. Kassel. The city is a map of open rooms. The war is officially over. The rubble does not end. The city was burned in October 1943. The raids left a skeleton of the old orangerie, a few facades. In May 1945, the ruins are already inhabited. People sleep in cellars. People cook in bathtubs set on bricks. People gather splinters of furniture under twisted tram wires. A street has no number. A family pins their name to a doorframe with a rusty nail. You can see it in photographs from the Bundesarchiv. Women with scarves tied hard on their heads, hands raw, moving bricks with short ropes and hooks. Trümmerfrauen, the historians called them later, the women of rubble. Their faces are narrow. Their teeth are bad. They laugh in some of the pictures. The camera freezes a private moment of relief in the ruins, but mostly they stoop and lift. A woman named Lotte writes in a diary from Kassel on 11 May, "We move stones all day to make a path. I dream of bread." The page is brown with age. Oh, the handwriting tilts. Allied troops have entered. In this city, the Americans. They arrive with jeeps, tanks, maps. They are tired and suspicious. They are also carrying chewing gum and cigarettes. They post orders in English and in bad German. Curfew at night. No gatherings of more than 5 people, weapons to be surrendered, Nazis to report themselves. This is a city where people do not yet know who is dead. An occupation report from OM-Gus, File Hesse, June 1945, population approximately 140,000. Housing destroyed in excess of 80%. Food stocks inadequate, water restored intermittently, morale beaten, denial of knowledge widespread. The report notes that public sentiment is passive, fearful, hungry. It notes that the Germans claim ignorance of crimes, but rumors circulate of horrors in nearby camps. The report makes recommendations for public health, but also for re-education. Karl is in Kassel that month. He is not a soldier. He is a railwayman. He was a scheduler in the Reichsbahn Direction Kassel, subsection Transport 4, special trains. He signed dispatch orders. He took calls. He marked forms. He wore a brown suit. He did not wear a uniform. He did not draw a uniform. He did not draw a pistol. He says later, in an interrogation report dated 12 September 1945, "I was not political. I was a railwayman. My duty was timetables. Orders came from Berlin, department. I executed." The report is in a Denazification file. Spruchkammer Kassel, file number STK 1000 FAU 221K Karl M. In that file there is a photo of a thin man with a narrow moustache and eyes that look directly into the camera. He looks like a clerk. He looks like a man who knows every second has a place. He knows where the tracks go. He knows where they went. But in May 1945, the subject is survival. The mathematics of calories. The arithmetic of a stomach. Ration cards classify lives into categories. Category I for heavy laborers. Category 2 for normal adult workers. Category 3 for sedentary. Children separate. The numbers dance. 1,550 calories, then 1,000, then as low as 700 in bad months. The hunger winter of 1946-47 is a cliff. Coal trains stop. Fields are snowbound. Potatoes rot in the ground. Bread is cut thinner and called bread. An Allied intelligence summary from January 1940. Work attendance declining. Mortality among the elderly increased. Reports of citizens boiling wallpaper paste for starch. The document records in flat words the result of war, blockade, winter. It is the mathematics of not enough. Cigarettes become money. American cigarettes, especially Lucky Strikes, become the soft gold of ruined Germany. A man with a sleeve of cigarettes can buy a bicycle. A woman with a carton can get a sack of flour. The black market opens in the open. In Frankfurt's Zeil, in Kassel's Königstrasse, in Berlin's Alexanderplatz, whisperers stand with their hands in their pockets. Hast du was? They swap sugar for bacon. They swap a radio for a coat. They swap a wedding ring for meat. The police look away. The police are busy. This is the arithmetic of a city. How to divide one egg between four. How to turn one potato into a soup that tastes like something else. How to press cigarettes into the palm on the scale so the butcher looks up and sees a person, not a number. Carl stands in queues. He goes on. Hamsterfahrten, trips to country villages to barter for food. He once organized trains to move people by the hundreds. He stands now to barter one radiator valve for 2 cabbages. He learns the face of the farmer who will not sell to men who were in the party. He says as little as possible. He shows his hands clean. He practices neutrality as an art. The hunger is a blanket thrown over everything, but it cannot cover the smell of knowledge. The smell is in the rails. There are displaced persons camps near. In the US zone, they are at Pocking, Feldafing, Landsberg. In the British zone, at Bergen-Belsen, now a DP camp after liberation. In these camps, Jews from Poland, Ukraine, Lithuania, former forced laborers from Ukraine, from the Soviet Union, from the Balkans, freed French and Dutch workmen, Italian military internees. They live in barracks that were once built to contain them. They hang laundry between watchtowers that stand empty now. In a camp outside Kassel, in a former Wehrmacht barracks at Rothwestern, the DP camp holds Poles and Ukrainians who do not want to go back. They have their own police, their own clinics. A US Army report from July 1945 describes DPs who are in poor condition physically but display strong will to self-govern. It notes friction with local German population. It notes trading with Germans and warns soldiers to avoid improprieties. The Germans of Kassel see the DPs on the street sometimes, in groups, under the watching eyes of UNRA officials and GIs. The Germans do not look long. Some avert their eyes from the star patches that some Jewish DPs still sew to fabrics as a statement in reverse. Some look and think they are better fed than we are. An oral history recorded in 1979 with a Kassel resident, Mrs. H., age 71 then, includes one sentence. They were laughing. We thought, how can they laugh? Then later I understood. They were alive. They were allowed to laugh. The tape whirs at that moment. The sound engineer clears his throat. The woman breathes out, and the tape catches it as a soft click. In April and May 1945, Allied units forced some German civilians to walk through the camps. They showed films in town halls. Death Mills, a US documentary, played to silent rooms. In Kassel, the town hall had a showing on 15 June. The attendance was recorded by an OMG US officer, approximately 450, mostly women. Manifestations of shock. Some restrict comment to Allied propaganda. Others weep. The mathematics of the image is unbearable. Numbers harden into bodies and then into ash. Those are not calculations, but facts. A train dispatcher does not see the cargo most days. He sees the code. Sonderzug, Bauzug, Truppentransport, Evakuierung. He sees the origin station and the destination. He sees the consist. He sees the requirement for locomotive class. He sees the time. He stamps. He calls. He plucks at the mesh of the network with his fingers, and the network trembles. Karl said in his later statement, "We were not told. We had code names. We believed it was resettlement." I could not imagine killing on that scale. He is not lying to the letter. He is trimming truth to shape. There is a mathematics of guilt. It is not resolved by a simple formula. It has weight that bends paper. Denazification begins with forms. In the US zone, the Fragebogen is 131 questions long. Name, birth date, party membership, positions held, organizations joined, SA, SS, NSFK, NSFK, DAF, NS Freundschaft. The names unroll like wire. Did you attend party meetings? Did you donate? Did you denounce? Did you profit? Every adult fills a stack. The line extends out the door of the town hall. The smell of sweat and ink mixes. People hold papers in both hands. They whisper advice. Say you were a Mitläufer, a follower. Say you were active only after 1942. Show you had children. Show you gave to the church. Then come the Spruchkammern, the Denazification courts. The categories are 5. Hauptschuldig, major offenders. Belastet offenders. Minder belastet, lesser offenders. Mitläufer, followers. Entlastet, exonerated. In practice, the categories blur. The number of cases overwhelms the machinery. In the US zone, by the end of 1949, about 3.6 million people had been processed. Most ended as Mitläufer or Entlastet. A small percentage, in the thousands, were classified as Hauptschuldig. Some were imprisoned, some lost property, many paid fines, many went back to work. The system needed stability. The economy needed workers. The schools needed teachers. The courts needed judges. The railways needed dispatchers. The mathematics of governance is not indifferent to the past, but it is allergic to paralysis. The calculus of the occupation authorities shifts. First severe, then practical. First severe, then practical. First purges, then exceptions. Policy documents from OMG use reflect this turn. A memorandum from General Lucius D. Clay in 1948 admits the limits. Perpetrators and followers mixed. We must identify leadership criminals. The rest we must make into Democrats by practice. Karl's file is thick and pale. His Fragebogen lists NSDAP member since May 1, 1937, a typical date for those who joined when membership reopened after a pause. He lists membership in the DAF, the Labour Front, compulsory. He lists employment with the Reichsbahn since 1929. He lists promotions in 1942 and 1943. He does not list working with the police. He writes, "I executed orders. I did not sign policy." Witness statements are attached. A colleague, Herr R., states, "Karl was always silent on political matters." A neighbor, Frau E., says, "He helped me carry coal in 1944. One anonymous letter writes, "He knew. The transports went at night. He was awake." The letter is unsigned, typed. The Spruchkammer hears him in October 1946. The Truschkammer hears him in October 1946. Did you know the destinations? The station names, yes. Did you know what awaited them? We heard rumors, but we had no proof. He bites his lip in the photo taken on that day. The paper does not record that. It records the sentence, minder belastete. He pays a fine. He loses his job for a while. He works in a salvage yard in 1947. He collects burnt wiring from bombed houses, scrapes the copper for sale. He wears gloves cut from old boots. He eats potatoes and nettles. He keeps his watch on a string around his neck because the glove cannot move the tiny crown anymore. He hears of others who were worse and became Mitläufer in the papers by a lawyer's skill. He hears of others who were less and got stuck in court that took years. He is not imprisoned. He is not executed. He is one among hundreds of thousands whose guilt is deemed administratively tolerable. He goes home and stares at the blank wall where a wedding photo used to hang before the bomb. Meanwhile, the country moves masses within its borders. It is called the Vertreibung, the expulsion. From East Prussia, Silesia, the Sudetenland, from Pomerania, millions are pushed west. They carry what they can. They arrive by train. They arrive on foot. They arrive in carts. They arrive with nothing. The arithmetic of rooms becomes war by other means. A village in Hesse with 900 inhabitants receives 600 expellees in 1946. A house that had 3 tenants has 6. A family with a kitchen table that seated 4 now seats 8. The mother's hand writes on a margin of a newspaper, "We sleep in shifts." The local government issues a decree, housing requisitioned for displaced. The insult and the necessity meet. The locals call the arrivals Polacken, even if they are German. The arrivals call the locals Die Dummen vom Westen, the stupid ones who lost nothing, which is untrue and also a defense. The churches hand out clothes and counsel. The mayor reads instructions from the district office, typed and official, compliance required. Protest to be directed to this office, not to the arrivals. In Kassel in 1946, expellee trains come into a temporary platform because the station is a framework. A municipal report notes friction increased, incidents of theft alleged, shouting between groups. Another note from the police warns citizens not to insult displaced persons while also recommending vigilance. The arithmetic of scarce bread adds numbers to every glare. A teacher in a small town near Kassel, in a letter to his brother dated 3 March 1947, writes, "The children of the refugees do not speak our dialect. They are teased. They punch back. In the yard today, a boy called another gypsy. We have no gypsies here. The insult is free-floating. It attaches to the nearest foreigner, and the new foreigners are our own people." The letter is stored in an archive, faded ink, the edges eaten a little by the air. The Allied occupation forces monitor all of this. Their reports are patient and repetitive. They track employment numbers, coal tonnage, grain shipments, disease outbreaks, arrests of former Nazis. They also track public sentiment. In a weekly intelligence summary, U.S. Zone 1724, January 1948, a sentence stands out. Germans express more fear of starving than of communism. They express more anger at Nazi leaders than at their neighbors. They express exhaustion. Exhaustion is an ideology made of absence. Then comes a hinge. The currency reform. 20. June 1948, in the Western zones. The Reichsmark dies, the Deutsche Mark arrives. People are allowed 40 new marks per person immediately. The shelves fill in 2 days. Goods that existed off books reappear. The black market collapses in weeks. A woman who sold a sweater for butter sees sweaters in a window and feels both relief and fury. She counts bills in her apron. The arithmetic of scarcity becomes the algebra of exchange. It is still thin. It feels like a gust of air in a sealed room. The Berlin airlift starts a day after because the Soviets block the road and rail to the western sectors of Berlin. Aircraft fly in coal, flour, milk. Tempelhof becomes a rhythm. The pilots drop candy in small parachutes for children. The children call the pilot the candy bomber. It is a story that fits in classrooms. It is true and incomplete. Everything is true and incomplete in this country now. The Marshall Plan ships cars and machines, but more importantly, it ships permission to hope. The European Recovery Program is a bureaucratic name. It means that new machines will be installed in Ruhr factories if men show up to shovel coal. It means that rails will be relayed with American spikes. It means that cement will set in the frames of houses that had been opened to the sky. It also means decisions about people. The Deutsche Bundesbahn is founded in 1949 in the West. The trains need dispatchers. The files on the desks have to move from denazified to approved. Karl gets a letter in 1950. It is an offer to return as a dispatcher in Frankfurt. The reason is unemotional. Experienced men are scarce. The new democracy rests on unspoken bargains. The bargain is that people who made the old trains move will make the new trains move. The bargain is that papers will define guilt in manageable ways, so that freight can be moved in crates instead of in announcements. Karl moves to Frankfurt. The station is both ruin and promise. The Hauptbahnhof's facade is scorched. The ironwork is whole. The platforms are a mess of splinters and new planks. The public address system crackles with a woman's voice trained to be soft. Zug nach Wiesbaden auf Gleis 114. Bitte zurückbleiben. A man in a peaked cap holds up a green disc. A train groans. The air smells like coal and hope, and something burned that is not yet gone. He sits at a desk with telephones in black bakelite. He has a map of the region behind him with glowing bulbs that mark where the trains are. Each bulb is a heartbeat. He watches them. He marks in pencil delays, crossings. He lifts a receiver and says, Frankfurt disposition, and a tinny voice on the other end says, Mainz HBF, running 5 late. He says, Move 34T to siding at Hircht, let 217 pass. He knows how to weave delay into order. He is good at his work. He apologizes for delays. He apologizes as if apology is a job title. He says it with his voice into the line. The public address woman repeats it with vowels like bomb. He knows that a minute feels like a charge to a waiting man. He knows that a delay feels like proof of decline. He knows that Germany has something to prove now to itself. Trains on time, bread on shelves, offices with working lights. The mathematics of punctuality is the opposite of the mathematics of deportation in form, but not in memory. Both are made of tables. Both are made of stamps. Both are made of a man at a desk moving people. Only intention distinguishes. This distinction will stand in his chest like a bitter coin. At night he returns to his new apartment. He sits with his wife, Anna, who had a sister who did not come back from the firestorm in Kassel. His son, born in 1942, sits with a school primer that shows a picture of a rebuilt bridge and the sentence, Germany builds again. The boy also learns cursive on a page where the model sentence is, We are grateful for peace. Inside the primer there is a map of Germany that shows borders as they stand in 1949, but it does not show the border where irony runs. Schools teach clean lines. The new textbooks emphasize democracy. They are full of the words about rights. They also tell a story about the recent past that is bearable in the classroom. They emphasize the suffering of civilians under bombing. They emphasize the hunger. They emphasize the expulsion of Germans from the East. These are true. They also are used as a screen. A Bundesarchiv dossier on school curricula in Hesse, 1952, records a circular. Teachers are to discuss National Socialism and war crimes in age-appropriate ways. The instructor's manual suggests focusing on dictatorship as an abstraction. Names a few. Guilt becomes a philosophy lesson. Public commemorations in the early 1950s build cenotaphs to the dead of both world wars. They do not name the Jews. Local memorial committees in small towns erect stones to victims of war and tyranny. The words are heavy and smooth. They cannot catch on anything. They are meant to be walked past without injury. The wound is internal anyway. The contact with victims continues, often through bureaucracy. The Wiedergutmachung, literally making good again, becomes a file word. The Federal Republic signs the Luxembourg Agreement in 1952 to compensate the State of Israel and Jewish organizations. Individual applications flow into offices. In one such office, in Frankfurt, a clerk sorts claims from survivors who once lived down the block. The forms ask for documentation. They ask for proof of deportation. They ask for a list of losses, furniture, paintings, life. The railways receive requests for transport papers. The Deutsche Bundesbahn inherits the Reichsbahn's archives. Schedules, waybills, car lists, invoices. The archive in Minden has boxes of paper that smell like a wet cellar. In 1953, a letter arrives at Karl's office, forwarded from Minden. It is a request from a law office acting for a claimant in Tel Aviv. They ask for confirmation that a convoy left Kassel in December 1941 for Riga. They ask for a person's name. They ask for proof that the train existed. The letter is precise and empty of adjectives. It is the grammar of a claim to existence. Karl holds the letter with fingertips as if it were hot. He knows those trains. He knows their masked names. He knows the dates. He knows the code. DA 16. He knows the phrase, "without return," was never written on a form. It was written in the steel of the rails. He routes the letter to archives. He writes a cover note, "Please advise," for legal processing. He does not write what he remembers. He does not have to. The documents will answer in small type that a train left, that it arrived, that wagons were returned empty to a yard that he listed once in pencil. The mathematics of official memory is not the same as history. It is a ledger of existence. He thinks of one day in 1942 when he stamped a set of papers and the clerk across from him dropped a pen and cursed, and then laughed. The laugh was not funny then. It is heavy later. He writes in his notebook in 1953, another line he does not show. The iron remembers everything we forget on purpose. By 1955, things look different on the street. The Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle, is visible in shoes. People wear better ones. They buy scooters, then small cars. A refrigerator appears in a kitchen like a chrome prayer answered. Shops fill with radios, then televisions in the front window that show moving figures of a man in a suit, the Chancellor, who is a grandfather in a stiff tie. He is named Adenauer. He tells the country to tie itself to the West. He says aloud, "We want peace and freedom." He does not often say the other words, the names of concentration camps, the names of the dead, the names of the long train lines that converged like veins to a necrosis. He is a politician. He reads the votes. The past is an opponent like any other. The Allied occupation formally ends in May 1955. The flags snap in Bonn, and there are speeches. The Federal Republic becomes a member of NATO in May 1955. The Wehrmacht is no more. The Bundeswehr is born. The war, which had ended in 1945, ends again. Prisoners of war still return. The last from the Soviet Union arrive at platforms in 1955, eyes sunken and uniforms turned to rags. Women hold their faces and do not move when men step down. They wait a long second. The faces of those who wait and those who step are recorded in newsreels and in private memory. It is the arithmetic of years. 1941, subtracted by 1955, leaves 14 winters. Carl watches a platform moment on a day when he is on duty. He sees a man who is off by a half-inch in height, a half-tone in voice from the man a woman was waiting for, but the woman makes him fit. This is not a lie. It is survival. The station tearfully accepts substitutions. The station is good at substitution. There is no pure space for morality in the schedule. There is only time. There is only the fact that people must move. Students move to cities. Workers move to cities. Refugees move to apartments farther from the city because nearer are taken. The trains move them. The apology for delay in 1956 is a small balm in a country that wants to live by punctuality now because the past was not. Carl learns the new vocabulary of democracy. Works council, union elections, Mitbestimmung, co-determination, a word that is not in any pre-war dictionary. He sits in a meeting where someone quotes a paragraph of the basic law about human dignity being inviolable. He looks at his hands. He thinks about what it means to never again schedule a train that makes dignity a fiction. He thinks about how words sit on paper like steel sits on ties. He thinks, without writing it, about how law and logistics meet. His wife says sometimes at dinner, "We are lucky." She is thinking of their child, of a steady wage. He agrees and does not say, "I do not know what I deserve." The arithmetic of desert is not distributed by the state. It is an inner taxation. It collects at night. An Allied observer in 1945 wrote that re-education would be a program. It was. It was also an accident of survival. People learned by living next to survivors, by walking by DP camps, by watching a clip of bulldozers and bodies in a newsreel in a reopened cinema in 1946, by having a neighbor return from Russia with a story that did not redeem anything, by having an uncle sentenced in 1948 and released in 1952, by having a boss who had a party book in a drawer in 1939 now shake hands as if nothing had happened, by realizing that being good later is not the same as being good before. The mathematics of guilt becomes a curriculum. Everyone studies in private. Its tests are not administered. Its grades are self-assigned and then denied. We did not know. We could do nothing. We had to feed the children. We had no choice. We had a choice. We chose. The grammar of excuses is human. The facts are iron. The archives are not silent. They wait. The Bundesarchiv begins to receive private donations of letters by the late 1950s. Some are from women who burned the originals and saved scraps. Some are from men who kept copies of orders in a tin box under a bed. A finding aid lists. Railway letters, 1941 to 1943. The archivist attaches a note, correspondence between Reichsbahn office and security police regarding scheduling of special transports, euphemistic. The catalogue is dry. It is not meant to be read aloud, it is meant to be found. Carl writes in his notebook in 1956 the line that cannot be spoken. He has seen, in a routine day, a young woman in an office down the hall crying over a restitution file because her father's name is in both sets of papers, as a policeman then and as a claimant now. He has heard the jokes in the break room about political correctness, not in the modern phrase but in the 1956 equivalents. Now we cannot even say, he has nodded and not laughed. He has gone home and taken a coin from his pocket, a 10-pfennig piece, and rubbed it in his palm until it warmed. Then he wrote, "The timetable does not list what the tracks remember." His career is, by external measures, correct. He has a cross on the wall from the bishop. He has a certificate of service from the Bundesbahn. He has a son who will apprentice as an electrician. He has no prison record. He has no public shame. He has private shame. He has the memory of a number that was substitute for a name. He has the memory of a night when a phone call said, late by 30, and he said hold 204, and then he walked home and told his wife he had indigestion. He has this now as a steady pressure on the sternum. The Cold War is the climate. It shapes daily plans. The East is now a separate country, the GDR, with its own Deutsche Reichsbahn, because the name sticks there. It keeps its own schedules. In 1953, an uprising of workers in East Berlin is crushed. In 1956, Hungary explodes and is crushed. West German newspapers fill with photographs of Soviet tanks. The West consolidates. The allies of liberation become the guarantors of freedom against another threat. The moral focus shifts outward. The inner moral business remains. Denazification ends officially in the early 1950s. The last Sprüchkammern close. Amnesty laws are passed. The 131 law of 1951 reintegrates former civil servants. Judges who judged in 1938 judge again. Teachers who taught in 1936 teach again. The mathematics of continuity is a function of necessity and choice. The function returns a value, stability. The value has a cost. The cost is paid by those who wanted a cleanse that did not happen. The cost is paid by those whose voices are not in the minutes of committees. A local newspaper in Frankfurt in 1956 runs a series on 10 years since the end. The first installment shows a picture of rubble and of the new department store. The text says, "We endured and rebuilt." It does not say, "We did and we endured and we rebuilt." The subject is survival. The predicate is missing. Karl's notebook pages for March of that year are a mixture. They have notes about a schedule change on the main Weser line. They have a shopping list, soap, flour, pencils for the boy. They have names, a Polish woman at the market who shouted at him. The note says, she said, "You." I did not answer. They have a small drawn set of parallel lines, then a cross drawn across them, then pink eraser smudges where he rubbed it out. On the next page, in a stronger hand, he writes, "What if my apology for delay is all the apology I am allowed?" There are oral histories collected in the 1970s in which men like Karl, but named, speak at last. We did not shoot. We were not at the ramp. We did not select. Those are facts and also defenses and also obstructions. The historian's job is to lay facts on paper, not to fix souls. The paper holds. Souls hang their own weights. There is also kindness. There is a story in a file in a synagogue archive in Frankfurt about a railway worker in 1941 who let a woman step down to use the toilet and walked her out the back. The woman wrote after the war, and the file keeps her letter. He made it ordinary. He said, "Come, come." He did not say hero words. He spoke as if any man would. Not every track runs one way. Lines branch. There were choices inside the machine. There were more non-choices than choices, but there were some. They do not absolve. They detail. The system did what it was designed to do. Railways are systems. They obey their own logic. The director of the Reichsbahn in one era wore a party pin. The director in a later era wears a tie with tiny locomotives on it. The machine moves for both. The moral mathematics is not inside pistons. It is in signatures. Karl is a single signature among millions. He is not the worst. He is not the best. He is the middle of the line, the mean. He is representative. He is singular. He is the man whose sentence opens this story and will close it. He is a man who in 1945 watched women with brick hooks making a road. He is a man who in 1947 took apart the scorched rails from a branch line to sell the metal for food. He is a man who in 1949 went to a church where the priest skipped a line in a sermon that would have been too much. He is a man who in 1950 put on a cap and a jacket and returned to the station. He is a man who in 1952 looked at a form that asked for evidence of a train and wrote, "See attached." He is a man who in 1956 wrote a sentence that he would show to no one. The country around him turned forward. The television flickers. The advertisements shift from soap to automobiles. The language shifts from "we suffer" to "we deserve happiness." The law builds an edifice that can be lived in, that shields. The police get new uniforms. The flag stands at sporting events without much fuss. Children grow tall. The mothers who moved bricks stand straight in skirt suits at church bazaars. The men who signed at desks in the old time call out numbers in the Schützenverein, the shooting club, and drink beer. The past is not undone. It is not even past. It is stuffed into drawers and tied with string and placed on top shelves. It is in the ostrich, the exit doors of the station, the ones that open outward with a push. You can travel away from it in miles. You can travel away from it in miles. You cannot schedule an escape. A historian leafing later through the files sees the layers, the occupation reports, thin and analytic, the Denazification files, legal and rough, the municipal documents, nervous and practical. DHA.